Thank you once again, everybody who's been able to attend today's webinar. We're going to go ahead and jump in and get started. My name is David Brown, and I'm here with Technion. We're just delighted to have you for this, another in the Greatness of Tableau webinar series, this one featuring Josh Milligan. And today's topic is Learning Tableau 10, the journey of writing a Tableau book. So maybe your interest in today's webinar is you've always had a dream or a hankering to write a book, and you're going to learn a little bit about what it's actually like. What are the nuts and bolts of doing so? Maybe you have written a book and you want to share pain and hear about Josh's experience of how difficult it is and what the process actually looked like for him. Maybe you're just passionate about Tableau and you're hoping to just learn a little bit more about Tableau 10, and specifically this new book, to Learning Tableau 10 by Josh Milligan, and what kind of resource that it can be for you as you continue to improve your game in Tableau. For whatever the reason, we're delighted that you have joined us here today. We do have a contest that we're having today. We're going to have a drawing. The drawing is actually going to be done live in Tableau at the end of the webinar. So for everybody who's here at the end of the webinar, Josh Milligan in Tableau is going to do a random drawing and give away a free signed copy of his new book, Learning Tableau 10, which will be shipped as soon as it's made available to us. Let me go ahead and introduce Technion, if I may, for those of you that are new to our company. We were founded about 17 years ago, and the bottom line is we're passionate about data and all things data. So we help companies unlock the truth hidden in their data. We believe that data is an incredibly powerful thing, has the opportunity to enlighten those using it, to run their businesses better, which equals better companies, better communities, and a better world. So we are passionate about data, and we operate in and around such things as data integration, visualization and analytics, products and skills training around our three primary products of Tableau, Alteryx, and Workbooks. We actually started our company with custom application development, custom software, and we still very much do that today. And we also are leaders in BI strategy and leadership, helping people create roadmaps in and around the BI initiatives in their organization, and where they are, where they need to be, and how to create that roadmap to get there. So that's kind of who we are. We are partners with Tableau. We're a gold partner with Tableau. We're a preferred platinum partner with Workbooks and a preferred partner with Alteryx. We believe in all three of these unbelievably powerful tools and how they create a really agile approach to business intelligence. Let me go and introduce our speaker for today, Josh Milligan. Many of you may already be familiar with Josh or know Josh personally. But Josh has been with Technion for over 10 years now. He started out as a technology consultant and has gone through application development into data warehousing, and then found his true love, which is Tableau, where he is just absolutely passionate today. Josh has the honor of being a 3-time Tableau Zen Master. If you're familiar with the community, you know that it's kind of a rarefied feat to achieve that once. To have achieved it 3 times is high cotton, and so Josh has been able to do that. He's also a Tableau social ambassador. He's just extremely active in the Tableau community, giving back to folks like you that are maybe at the beginning of your journey or well along in your journey of learning and mastering Tableau. Josh has been a phenomenal resource to the community in helping you do that. And he's now the author of 2 books, Learning Tableau and Learning Tableau 10, which is just now being published and being made available on Amazon over the next few days. So again, thank you so much for everybody joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Josh.
All right, thank you, David. I'm excited to be here. It's an honor and a privilege, and thank you so much for attending. What I'm going to talk about today is a little bit different than what I usually talk about. I usually am demoing Tableau or teaching or training Tableau or data. Today, it's much more of a story. It's much more of a personal story, and it's the story of the journey that I went on as I wrote a Tableau book. And I get questions all the time about what's the process of writing a book, or how did you get started, or how do you work with a publisher, and so I'm excited to share some of that with you today. Along the way, I'll share some Tableau tips and tricks that are in the book, and then a few other things as well. So what is the journey of writing a book? I suppose it's different for every person. For me, it all started with a single email. So Jonathan Walder is one of the principal consultants here at Teknion Data Solutions, and he sent an email back in 2013, so shortly after the release of Tableau 8, and the email was simply one line: who wants their name in print? And then attached to the email was another email from Pact Publishing, talking about the opportunity to be a technical reviewer for a Tableau book. Well, I had been active in the Tableau community for a while. I love Tableau, and so I was immediately excited about that kind of an opportunity. So I responded to Pact Publishing and said, yeah, I'd love to do it. And they immediately got me started as a technical reviewer of the book Tableau Data Visualization Cookbook. So this was published back in 2013, and you can see I spent just over a month as a technical reviewer of this book. I'll talk more about the technical review process in a bit, so you'll see what that is. But primarily, what I did was provide feedback to the author on a technical level. So evaluating what they had written, confirming places where I felt that it was technically accurate, pointing out things that maybe I would clarify, and sometimes even providing correction as necessary. And you'll see more of that as I go along. But it was a really neat experience. It was right as I was starting to really get to know Tableau and really understanding how it works, but I was still learning a lot as well. So it was a growing experience for me, and it was a time when I could provide some feedback, but I was still learning a lot at the same time. Of course, I continue to learn a lot, but a great experience overall, and relatively short time frame for reviewing that book. After that, Pact Publishing reached out to me again and said, hey, you reviewed the Data Viz Cookbook. Would you be interested in reviewing another Tableau book? And so this time it was the book Creating Stories with Data Public by Ashley Oman, who's the Director of Professional Services at Tableau Software, and also Matt Floyd. And so once again, I was excited about the opportunity to review this book, and so you can see this review process was actually quite a bit longer. This was a longer book, and I actually got in on the process a little bit earlier as well. So it took a little bit longer. It didn't really take much more of my time personally, but it definitely was a longer process. And so you can see it was all the way from the very first part of 2014 into 2015. And so by the time I was done, we were into the beta of Tableau 9, which was pretty exciting. Now, during that time, while I was still reviewing that book, Pact Publishing reached out to me and said, would you like to write a book? Would you like to be an author? Since you've been reviewing a couple of the books. And this was a bigger decision. So reviewing is definitely a commitment, but I had no idea what writing a book would be like. I had no idea what the time commitment would be. I didn't really have any idea what the experience would be like. So I talked to my wife, and she said, well, how much time outside of work do you think it's going to be? And I very naively said, well, I would guess maybe 5 hours a week or something, maybe 5 to 10 hours a week. Turns out that authoring a book is quite a bit more effort than that. I didn't actually track the time that it took. I wish I had, but you can see the length of time here was from June 2014, when I first started writing, all the way through April of 2015. Now, part of the length of that was not just the length of time that it took to write it, but it was the fact that Tableau 9 was coming out, and so when the public beta became available, I reached out to Pact Publishing and I said, Tableau 9 is going to be out. Should we consider updating the book? And they said, yeah, that would be a great idea. Let's update it so that it's specific to Tableau 9. And so the great thing was that I was able to go back, and in the process I was able to update the book, include the new features that were new to Tableau 9, and the book ended up being published right after the release of Tableau 9, which was great timing and pretty exciting. So that was a fun process, and that was the first edition of Learning Tableau. During that time, and all the way to the present, of course, I've been involved with various other activities. Of course, I've got my day job here at Teknion Data Solutions as a consultant and Tableau trainer, so I'm working with clients to help them understand their data and using Tableau to visualize their data. But in addition to that, I love blogging about Tableau. I worked with David Baldwin here at Technion on putting together some custom trainings based on my book, Learning Tableau, and I also have helped him as he writes his book, Mastering Tableau, which should be out in the next month or so, also from Pact Publishing. I did not do an official technical review of his book, but I've been able to preview some of his material and work together with him. Of course, I've been doing webinars, which I'm happy to do, and I'm glad you're a part of, and lots of other things. I also have been reviewing, or I just finished reviewing a video series by Tim Messer, also by Pact Publishing. So that has been a new experience for me, rather than technically reviewing a book, to technically review a video series. That's been a lot of fun. Well, so Learning Tableau, the first edition, came out in 2015, and for the next year, it did fairly well. It actually sold better than I had ever anticipated that it might, and so I was excited about that. I was happy about that. And then towards the end of 2015, Pact Publishing reached back out to me and said, you know, there's a new version of Tableau coming out. Would you be interested in updating your book and writing a second edition? And knowing how much effort the first edition was, I went back to my wife and she said, well, how much effort will this one be? And I said, well, it's a second edition, so I don't think it'll be quite as much. I think it's not too bad. And it really wasn't. So I went back to Pact Publishing and I said, well, you know, the beta of Tableau 10 isn't out yet, so let's wait until the beta's out, and then I can start writing, and they agreed. So shortly after the public beta of Tableau 10 came out, I started writing the second edition. And you can see that the length of time that it took to write the second edition was quite a bit shorter than that first edition. And a lot of that is due to the fact that I only had one version of Tableau 10. Of course, I had to do some updating because things changed during the beta process. But it really wasn't quite as bad in terms of the amount of time that it took or the amount of effort. It was a lot easier to write the second edition, and a lot more fun because I could really start to focus not just on the content, but on the flow of the content and on how I wanted to arrange it and how I wanted it to be used as a learning tool for anyone who is desiring to learn Tableau 10. Now, a lot of people ask, what's the process of writing a book? Do you just sit down and write it? Do you, what's the kind of the flow? Well, again, I never really tracked the number of hours spent, but I think this kind of represents the chunks of the process. So the bulk of it, of course, is the writing. So the first drafts, the second drafts, and then kind of wrapping things up. But there's always a little bit of effort on both sides of that. So at the beginning, figuring out contract and initial details like the templates that are used for writing, or the styles that Pact wants to see, so that when they put it together, it flows really nicely and it has the right headings and subheadings and everything is really well done. And then there's creating the outline. So for the first edition and for the second edition, one of my first responsibilities was come up with an outline for the book. Describe each chapter, what the chapter is going to contain, what the purpose of the chapter is, and come up with a flow for the book. I'll actually show that here in a second. And then the largest amount of time is spent on writing those first drafts. So that initial writing is probably the most amount of effort spent in the entire process. And you know, especially with the first edition, I'm writing things from scratch. I'm coming up with how I want to say it. The second edition, it's a little bit easier, but I'm still trying to evaluate everything that I said in the first and think, is it still applicable to Tableau 10? Is it still the most important? Does the order need to change? So lots of time spent with the first drafts. One thing that's not shown here, but is very important, and I'll point it out here, but there is here at the end of at the first drafts and into the second drafts, that's where that technical review process comes in. So that's where the technical reviewers are looking at those first drafts. And that's also where some editing is occurring. So Pact Publishing is doing some of the editing and the reviewing of styles, wording, format of the chapters, and they're providing feedback. And the technical reviewers are providing feedback. And then the second drafts are all based on that feedback. The second drafts go a lot faster because it is primarily just working through the changes that need to be made based on that feedback. But additionally, it was also adjusting things that may have changed from some of the early beta editions of Tableau 10 to the actual release of Tableau 10. So there was some cleanup that needed to be done there. And then finally, there's some checking of the pre-finals, which is the exact layout of how it's going to look in the book and the exact wording, and going through those and making sure that everything is exactly the way that I want it and exactly the way that the publisher wants it. And finally, there's just some other wrap-up tasks like writing a biography or coming up with a preface or various things just to wrap up the book, and then there's publication. And so that is the process of writing a book, at least the process that I've gone through a couple of times now. So I told you that I would tell you a little bit about the outline of the book. And this was something that as I sat down for the very first time and thought about how would I arrange a book called Learning Tableau 10 that's geared towards a broad audience. So it's part of the learning series, which is meant to be accessible for beginners, so anyone who is new to Tableau 10, but also to lay the foundations and then move into even intermediate and advanced material. And so this is something that I gave a lot of thought and time to. And what you're looking at here is the list of chapters from the second edition. So you can see that, you know, when you start out, you're starting out in chapter 1, creating your first visualizations and dashboard. But it's not just an introduction to visualizations and creating a dashboard. It's really laying foundations that are key for Tableau. And then we move into working with data, and that's, again, laying the foundations for how do you work with data. So even if you've been using Tableau for a couple of years, these are things that I wish I had known when I started using Tableau, because they're really important concepts for how Tableau works and how you can make it work to your advantage. And then you kind of move into more advanced topics or intermediate topics. So moving into advanced visualizations and calculations, which, again, I lay the foundations so that if you're new to calculations, you're getting those foundational principles, but you're even moving into some intermediate and advanced application of calculations. Table calculations the same way. And then those are pretty heavy topics, so we kind of back off a little bit and go to formatting and lay some foundations for formatting. Telling a story with dashboards, again, is foundational and kind of intermediate. And then we move back into some more advanced things towards the end of the book. So some of the analytical features, trends, clustering, distributions, and forecasting, they all get at their own chapter. Making data work for you. So we talked back in chapter 2 about how do you work with data. That's kind of the foundational principles, but you get to chapter 9 and it's all about how does the structure of data impact the analysis that you can do, and how can you adjust the structure of the data to make things easier. And then chapter 10, advanced visualization, some techniques, some tips, some tricks, really building on those foundations to say, okay, now what are some things that you can do with Tableau that go above and beyond and really open up the door for all kinds of things in the future. And so if you take all of these foundations and intermediate and advanced concepts and you kind of rearrange them, you get a view like this, which maybe is a pyramid. And so you can see my whole idea of this book was, let's lay the foundational principles out there and then build on top of that so that this book can be used by anyone, whether they're just starting with Tableau, whether they've been using Tableau for a long time. This book really will help people across the board, and that was kind of my goal. And along with that, along with writing the book, another thing that I did was to create some sample dashboards or some sample workbooks to give you an opportunity as you work through the book to follow along with the examples, either on your own with a starter workbook, which each chapter has, or to check your work or to verify how it was done using a complete workbook. So if we look at chapter 1 here, what you'll see is chapter 1 kind of starts out very simply and gives you some of the just basic foundational principles that you need to know. So measures and dimensions. I really wanted to talk about that first and foremost. So even, well, the book goes into some of the interface and common terminology and that sort of thing, but this is really the primary foundational principle that if you understand what a measure is and what a dimension is, it allows you to really understand how Tableau works, and then go into discrete and continuous and what those are. But you can see the chapter 1 workbook, it has things kind of laid out for you. It's starting you off kind of easily, and it gives you some instructions on how to do things. But this is the starter workbook, so sometimes you'll see things kind of starting for you, but then you have instructions on how to complete these exercises, and then you can check them in the complete workbook. If we were to look at some other ones here, so maybe chapter 5, which is about table calculations. So again, this is one that kind of, we're going to look at the complete one here. But chapter 5 is one that starts off with some foundational principles about what are table calculations, how to use quick table calculations, which are really easy, just a couple of clicks. And then we talk about scoping and direction, addressing and partitioning, and really try to lay those foundations through chapter 5. And then we look at all the different kinds of table calculations, so running and window functions. And then we start to move into maybe some intermediate uses of them. So sorting. How do you sort with a table calculation? Sorting within a group. Late filtering. So we talk about that. So we're starting to move into some advanced topics, and even something like data densification. So that gets a section in the book to talk about what are some things that you need to know about how Tableau works with data densification. Not trying to go too deep, but just trying to show you, here are some ways that you can turn it on and off, and if you run into some weird behavior, like sometimes you might be working with something and you'll say, here's ship mode and container, and I don't ship every container with every type of ship mode, but if I add a table calculation, say index, all of a sudden Tableau starts to fill in those values and makes it look like I have a ship mode for every container type. So that gets a section in the book to talk about how you can use that even to solve some kinds of problems, and how you can turn it off if you don't want to see it. So here's an example of turning it off. And the example workbooks work through those kinds of issues, and each one has a starter and a complete as well. So that's kind of the outline. Writing a book is a team effort. That's something that I learned. I didn't know that going into it, so I kind of thought as the author, it's all on me. I'm gonna write it, and that's the bulk of the effort. But if you open up the book to that front page and you see the credits section of everyone who contributed effort towards the book, you'll see it's a massive team. Everyone from reviewers to proofreaders to copy editors and project coordinators and managers. The team at PACT is amazing in terms of their ability to help the entire process move along and to coordinate everything, and then to edit and proofread and work on graphics and get it set up with various booksellers and printers. So it's an amazing team effort, and I'm deeply grateful to the entire team of people who worked on this. And you won't see some names here, but there are countless people that I look to and say, you know, I really stand on the shoulders of giants. People in the Tableau community, the Tableau training team at Tableau Software, all kinds of people who deserve credit for contributing to this book. I do want to point out some of the contributions of the technical reviewers, because I am deeply grateful to both Bridget and Sean. They served as technical reviewers. You'll recall that I was a technical reviewer for a couple of books, so I kind of knew the process, and it gives me a great appreciation for what they go through and their contribution to the book. But I'll show you in a minute kind of how they helped shape this book throughout the process. And you'll recall in the process that the technical reviewing kind of happens here towards the end of the first drafts. The technical reviewers are getting copies of the chapters, and then they're sending them back, and I'm getting their feedback to write the second drafts. So I'll show you a little bit of the feedback that I got. Both Bridget and Sean are experts when it comes to Tableau. They're both Zen Masters. They're both Tableau ambassadors. It's an incredible honor to have them be part of this process, and their feedback really helped more than they'll ever know or appreciate. But it was incredibly helpful. Here's an example, or some examples, of the kinds of things that they came back with. So as I wrote the chapters and then gave them back to PACT Publishing, PACT would pass those chapters on to Bridget and Sean, and what I would get back is a document that was incredibly marked up with all kinds of comments and reviewers' notes. Everything from technical advice and suggestions, so Bridget suggesting other terms that could be used, Sean pointing out that one of my charts didn't match my description, and again Sean pointing out that that something here isn't quite accurate because I didn't describe it fully, or maybe even pointing out some additional ways that things can be accomplished, which can be very helpful to give to the reader, rather than saying this is the only way that Tableau can do it, pointing out some of the different options, and definitely some things that I wasn't even aware of as I went through. So very good feedback on a technical level, and then of course there were some suggestions that I didn't take, but it doesn't mean that they were bad suggestions. So for example, Bridget here saying, you know, here in this chart you could drop out the axis, it would make it look nicer. And I responded, you know, that's definitely an option. There's a balance, and everybody's going to like something a little bit different. I chose to keep it, but she may very well have been right. That may have been a better option. Sean here pointing out that in my discussion of measures and dimensions, I list measures first and dimensions second, and he said, that's not the way Tableau shows them in the interface. And I said, well, that's true, but I want to describe them in that order to help the discussion and make things a little bit more clear. So there were times that I didn't follow their advice, but most of the time I did. Everything from the technical that we saw to stylistic and grammatical corrections, I appreciated all of it. So Bridget suggesting italics or bold of a word here to make it call out. Sean suggesting different wording, which was very helpful to clarify, and again suggesting or stating here that my screenshot wasn't accurate anymore. And I said, well, that's one of the drawbacks of using Beta 1 in writing the book. I did have a lot to go back and fix and correct. Catching incomplete sentences, and one of my favorite here is Bridget saying, don't encourage the reader to do what you just said in terms of the formatting. And yeah, I was just using it as a possible technical thing that you could do, but a great point. Don't use different formatting on row and column grand totals. There's no reason to do that. And then the encouragement that I got along the way. So I would have been happy with just the technical and stylistic and grammatical corrections that were being made all along the way. That in and of itself would have been helpful. But to get constant feedback that was encouraging along the way was very helpful to me, because one of the things that's hard when you're writing a book, as opposed to teaching a class or standing up in front of someone, or even doing a webinar like this, is that when you do those things, you're getting immediate feedback from the class. You know when they're confused, you know when they're following along, you know when they're happy with what you're saying. When you're writing a book, sometimes you have no idea what the response is going to be, and so it's very incredible to get positive feedback and encouragement from the reviewers, and so I deeply appreciated that. What I haven't shown you here is that along with the reviewers, and I did get Bridget's and Sean's permission to show these various comments. I didn't go to the publisher and ask for their permission, so you haven't seen the feedback that I got from the editors and their corrections, stylistically, grammatically, asking questions of clarification, and also providing the same kind of encouragement along the way. So you haven't seen that, but I was getting that from the publisher as well. And so the end result of all of this is the book itself, which coincidentally was just published today. Actually, I think it's been available from Pact Publishing for about a week or so, but other booksellers are starting to list it, and I think many of them listed today as the official date of publication. And so I'm happy to be done for now. I'm happy to have time to go back to Twitter and the Tableau forums and other things that kind of got neglected, blogging, as I worked on the book. But I'm also excited to think about how this book is going to help people to understand Tableau and how they're going to be able to use it for themselves, for their organizations, to understand their data and to make key decisions. And so I'm excited to see that, and I'm deeply grateful to Pact Publishing and to everyone else who helped along the way.
All right, well, Josh, that was, I'll tell you, that was absolutely fascinating to kind of learn about the process of writing a book. For those of you listening, again, maybe you've always thought, I'd like to write one day. What in the world would that process look like? And maybe you're inspired and a little bit educated on what it might do for you. So again, thank you, Josh, for taking the time to kind of walk us through this journey. I'd like to take just a quick minute before Josh does the drawing, and as well as the Q&A, to tell you just again a little bit about Technion and how we assist you in the process of your Tableau journey. That maybe you're just getting started with Tableau, and maybe you're at a place where some best practices, consulting and mentoring, or maybe some formal training might help. And so we have a number of certified trainers that travel the country training Tableau fundamentals and advanced, as well as we actually train on Joshua's books as well. So if you were impressed with Learning Tableau or Learning Tableau 10, we actually have curriculum built around the actual content of these books, and are just delighted to help you and your organization learn Tableau and Tableau 10. Maybe it's around dashboard development. Maybe you have kind of taken the leap into Tableau, but you really need some quick wins, and maybe your experience and skill set level isn't quite there yet. We can come in with some consultants like Josh and Bridget and assist you in creating some really dynamic and interactive dashboards to tell that story and give that positive impression of Tableau right out of the gate. Maybe it's around Tableau server consulting, maybe the setup and upgrades and performance tuning in and around the enterprise application of Tableau, and we certainly have a large number of folks that do that as well. Or maybe you're at a place where you've already proven out Tableau and the value of it in pockets in the organization, and now maybe it's about rolling it out on a full scale, on an enterprise level, and using maybe the Tableau Drive methodology. Technion is experienced in helping companies roll it out on an enterprise level. Maybe you're doing fine with Tableau. Maybe the issues reside elsewhere. Maybe it's you're pulling so much data from different data sources that you really need a single source of truth. Maybe you need a data warehouse, and Technion can assist you using a product called Warescape with data warehouse automation in building a data warehouse faster, cheaper, and better than has historically and traditionally been done. Maybe you're just blending so many different data sources that the use of Tableau and a product like Alteryx would just make your life easier, creating reproducible and repeatable workflows using Alteryx. Or maybe you're just asking yourself, how do I create the BI journey, the story, the roadmap in my organization that I could then sell upstream to get the organization to buy into it, and then to actually have a game plan to roll out Tableau and a data solution within the organization. And we help companies all the time in helping them create a data strategy and a BI roadmap. So however Technion might be able to assist you, that is what we do. We're passionate about data, passionate about truth, passionate about Tableau, and passionate about our clients. And it would be an absolute privilege and pleasure to serve you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Josh for the drawing of a free signed copy of his book, and then he's going to conduct a short Q&A. But for those of you that do need to leave, let me just thank you so much again for participating in these webinars that we do on a monthly basis. We'll continue to keep you informed and invited of future webinars. So Josh, let's have a drawing.
All right, so we're going to use Tableau to do the actual drawing. And that's the first time I've ever done this, so it will either be a resounding success or a complete and utter failure. We'll hope for the former. What I have here, and I just pulled the data, so I have everyone who has registered and attended here on the webinar. I'm not showing your full name, so we'll keep things a little bit private for display purposes. But I've got your name showing here, and what we're going to do is use Tableau, and we're gonna use Tableau in a certain way. So we're going to use the sort order in Tableau to determine who the winner of this drawing is. You can see that by default, Tableau is sorting names in alphabetic order. I could reverse that. I could do something manual. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a random sort order. So I'm going to create a calculated field. We'll call this random sort. And it's just going to use this function called random. That's actually a function that doesn't show up in the list of functions from Tableau, but it is a valid function. And I'll say OK. I'm going to use it as a dimension because I want it to be assigned for every row of data and to use it for every row of data. And if I just look at it on text, what you'll see is that it's giving me a random decimal between 0 and 1. So some are very small, some are very large, and everything in between, but it's completely random. So if I press F5 to refresh the data, I get different random numbers for each person. All right, now don't get excited yet. This is not the official drawing, but I'm going to move it up here to rows. And when I move it up here to rows, you're going to see that random sort now is going to define the sort order. So the smallest random number is going to give us the first one, and then so on down as it builds up towards 1. I'm going to press F5 a couple of times just so you can see the sort order. I'm going to press it 3 times. That still will not be the official drawing, but I do want you to see that as I press it, here's 1. The sort order completely changes. It's randomized. I'm going to press it again just so you can see that it's randomized again. And one more time, this is still not official. There it is again. Now, if your name has shown up in that first spot, don't worry, it is completely random. You have just as likely a chance of showing up in that first spot again. But we'll see. This is the official. I'm going to press F5 one more time, and we'll see who shows up in that first spot. Matt, congratulations. We'll keep only Matt. I'm going to pull this away, but I'll look up who Matt F is, and we'll be in touch about getting a copy of Learning Tableau 10 to you. All right, so questions. If you have questions, go ahead and type them into the questions section. I see that we have a few, but we'll have just a few minutes here of Q&A. Question number 1 from David. How would you say that the book has impacted your career? Have you received feedback from readers that lead you to believe that Learning Tableau has made a difference in how effectively people do their job? Yeah, so 2 questions there. So my career, I don't know that I would say that it has had a direct impact on my career. I mean, I started out as a consultant here at Technion, and I'm still a consultant here at Technion, and I love it. I don't anticipate changing or anything of the sort. And I'm grateful to Technion for the opportunity that they've given and the support and encouragement as I've written these books. So I don't know that it has directly changed my career or my career path, but it definitely has opened up different avenues of being able to communicate with people, being able to talk to people, and it is exciting to run into people and they say, I've read your book. Of course, I don't run into people on the street who say that, but at the Tableau conference or various places like that, I'll run into people. So that's exciting. And yeah, I have discovered that people are very appreciative, and they do express that in feedback. So I have received numerous pieces of feedback from people saying that this book has really helped them understand how Tableau works. It's helped them use Tableau effectively as they work within their organization or as they try to understand their data. So that has been great. I've been encouraged by the feedback that I get on places like Amazon, and just to read some of the reviews that talk about, this book really unlocks Tableau and really helps them understand it. So that's a lot of fun and really encouraging to hear that. All right, Preston asks, which feature of Tableau 10 did you find the most difficult to write about and why? Wow, so I don't know, there were a lot of new features of Tableau 10 that I needed to incorporate into the second edition. So clustering comes to mind as something that I spent a lot of time on in the book. Level of detail calculations were not new in 10, but I hadn't given them a lot of consideration in the first edition because they were new with Tableau 9, and so when I started writing the first edition, they weren't even there. So with Tableau 10, with the second edition, I've really expanded the section on level of detail calculations, and those may have been some of the more difficult things to write about, just from a technical perspective and thinking through how do you explain them in such a way that it's accessible to people. The section on data densification. So data densification is not new to 10, but it was a new section in the book. I think originally I had maybe one information box in the first edition that kind of mentioned it. But I felt like it's not necessarily a beginner concept, but it is something that people run into. They run into this behavior of Tableau, and if they don't know what it is or how to deal with it, it can be something that frustrates people. So that is something that's relevant to beginners. So I felt like that should be a section in the book, and that was also challenging to talk about. Randy just has a note of things. She says that the encouragement section of the feedback struck a chord with me to lift up other people. So thank you for that. And some other thank yous from Siggy. And Ashok said there are lots of books in the market about Tableau. What is the best feature of Learning Tableau 10, and why should we buy this book? So yeah, there's a lot of books out there, and so I'm definitely grateful when people turn to this book. My goal with this book was to write a book that gives a foundational approach to Tableau to help people understand the paradigm of Tableau. And I think that when you understand the paradigm of Tableau and then you start to build on top of that with some intermediate and some advanced principles, you really find that you can use Tableau to do anything. So, you know, there are books out there that maybe give you a step-by-step of how do you create this type of visualization or how do you do this type of analysis. My goal was not to give step-by-step instructions all the time. My goal was to show the paradigm and really help the reader understand what that paradigm is and how they can use it and how they can go on with a good understanding of that paradigm to be able to do whatever they want with Tableau, build whatever type of visualization, do whatever kind of analysis they want, and not just be stuck with a set of step-by-step instructions that they've memorized from a book. That definitely was not the goal. Vincent says, do you cover things like R integration? So R integration gets a little mention in this book. It was a little bit outside the scope here, and so no, it does not get a very thorough treatment. But I would say, I think, and David Baldwin, I think, is on here, so he can jump in and correct me. I think his forthcoming book, Mastering Tableau, does deal extensively with R integration. So that's a continuation in this series of books, and definitely worth checking that out. And David says, yeah, he has one whole chapter on R integration, so check out his book when it's out. His book is Mastering Tableau, so learning and then mastering. All right, well, I think that wraps it up. I don't see any other questions. Thank you guys so much for attending. It's definitely a pleasure as always. Thank you again. Have a great day.